that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be
Winter reveals the hidden lie. Moonlight could mask their cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise.
all the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel. If you've not been here before, you've been missing out. Welcome to our channel, the Hillbilly Train. This is Hillbilly Crime. My name is Elizabeth. Sweet Tater's awful tired, so she's not going to join us tonight. I saw that this interview, we just did Court TV a second ago. And we'll show that on our show tomorrow. But tonight we are going to hear a new interview with Mickey's defense attorney that Angenette Leavy did on law and crime. So let's get right into it. And it does a little bit of recap, so anybody who doesn't really know what we're talking about be able to.
Mickey Stines claiming he was insane when he shot and killed a judge in his chambers. I look at what this means with his lawyers and trace Stines' steps in the hours before he killed his longtime friend. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Leavy. When Mickey Stines shot and killed Judge Kevin Mullins in his chambers, it was absolutely unbelievable. This was the top cop in Letcher County, Kentucky, firing a gun at a sitting judge in his chambers, and it was all recorded by a surveillance camera. And so was much of Stines' and Mullins' day before the shooting, which I'm going to show you here in just a bit. Not only was Kevin Mullins a judge, he was Mickey Stines' one-time boss and longtime friend. But it seemed like something changed in a matter of minutes, maybe even seconds. The sheriff may have snapped. At least that's what the latest filing from his lawyers would suggest. Stines is charged with murdering Kevin Mullins. His lawyer, Jeremy Bartley, filed a notice stating Defendant intends to present expert evidence relating to a mental disease or defect or mental condition bearing on the issue of guilt and punishment. Defendant intends to present a defense of insanity as well as a defense of extreme emotional disturbance. On top of this, Stines' lawyers are telling the court that they want their expert to be present when a state expert evaluates him. Stines' attorney, Jeremy Bartley, is going to be here shortly to explain all of this. This shooting happened last September 19th, and we're getting a look at Stines before he pulled the trigger through surveillance cameras in and around the courthouse. That day seemed like any other in Letcher County. Judge Kevin Mullins was in his chambers around noon. Mickey Stines was sitting across from him in a chair, and there was a man to his left, and another man, a pastor, stood to Mullins' side. There's no audio, so we don't know what the men were discussing, but Mullins, at least, seemed relaxed. He was even smoking in his chambers. The group sat for several minutes, chatting away. It's probably something they had done many, many times over the years. Around 12:07 p.m., Stines walked out of the judge's chambers. Mullins says something and he stops, but then he keeps walking. Again, we don't know what was said, but the people in the room certainly know. From outside, you can see Mickey Stines walking away from the courthouse. It's 12.
Oh my God, I just found out that my data is all over the dark web. So I found this tool that does a scan of the dark web.
12:11 p.m. at this point. Another camera shows Stines walking back into the courthouse for just a moment. Then he turns around and walks back out. Mullins and Stines had lunch at a local restaurant. It was something they did often. They ordered the same thing they always did, and by all accounts, there was no tension at this lunch. By 1:16 p.m., Mickey Stines is walking back to the courthouse from lunch. If only we knew what he was thinking on that walk. By 1:30, Judge Mullins was back in his chambers, talking with some people for a little bit. Eventually, he's back on the bench. Judge Mullins presided over cases from about 1:45 to 2:35 that afternoon. Then around 3 p.m. that day, Mullins was in his chambers with Stines. What the men were discussing remains a mystery. Stines made a phone call first from his phone and then Judge Mullins' phone, and then Stines fired several shots at the man he once called a friend. You can see people in Mullins' chambers rush out after hearing the shots. They likely had no idea what was happening other than a gun had been fired. Troopers' dash cameras showed Stines being led to a cruiser in handcuffs after 4 p.m. that day, and Stines sounded paranoid.
You mean pick your leg up, my brother?
Y'all got carbon monoxide in here.
Oh.
Come on now. Come on. I can't sit like this. I can't. Come on now. Be fair to me.
We're being good to you, brother. You stick your leg up in there.
Come on now, guys. Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. Please.
You want to scoot on over a little bit to the left?
Come on now.
Try to scoot on over a little bit more. That way we don't hit you. Can you go any bit farther? I don't hit you with the door. Put your knee in there, my friend.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Bates. Hey, Bates. Can we loosen this up a little or give the window down?
I'm sorry.
Can we loosen this up a little? Be fair to me, man.
I got some air. I'll crack the window for you, but I can turn the air on back here. Okay?
Yeah. Be fair to me now.
I promise. Yeah, I promise.
God, please.
I promise. I'll tell you.
It's hot back here, man. I can't breathe.
During the nearly hour drive to the Leslie County Jail, troopers tried to get Stines to talk to them.
Okay, Mickey. Anyway, so do you want to talk about it? Is this to do with anything with your family, your daughter, or anything?
Bring it in.
The world can be really unpredictable and scary, so having a great lawyer really matters, and that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. The firm has more than 1,000 lawyers, and that's because they win a lot. We later found out that Stines had been deposed days before the shooting in a civil suit filed by a woman named Sabrina Atkins. She had been arrested in 2021 on a drug charge, and a deputy named Ben Fields told her he'd help her with an ankle bracelet for home incarceration in exchange for sex. Atkins said she and Fields had sex in Judge Mullins' chambers 6 times, and she told investigators with the Kentucky Attorney General's office it wasn't just Fields having sex in the judge's office.
But he does have some videotapes There's some stuff in the judge's chambers,
What kind of stuff?
just with girls sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, and just him having sex with girls for their able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
Now you saw the video.
Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins having sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know, because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was a judge in chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
But you don't know who the girl was?
So Sabrina Atkins had told investigators she saw a video of Judge Mullins having sex with a girl in his chambers. Last fall, Kentucky State Police investigator Clayton Stamper testified at a preliminary hearing for Mickey Stines that Stines was concerned for his wife and daughter after the shooting.
He was mostly calm, I thought. I mean, I talked to him, but he didn't say nothing about why this had happened. But he was calm. He was kind of afraid that basically all he said was, treat me fair. That's basically the comments he made.
Okay. Did he also make a statement about, I didn't see it in the citation here, but somewhere along the line I saw a statement being attributed to him about protecting his family?
I wasn't present, but when he was taken into custody, I was told by one of the other officers that were there that he made the comment, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
So something is definitely going on in Letcher County, Kentucky. It's a small town with a lot of big secrets. I want to bring in Jeremy Bartley. He represents Mickey Stines in this case. So Jeremy, we kind of anticipated this. So tell me what you filed. You guys are going to claim that at the time that Mickey Stines shot Judge Mullins, which is not in question, it's on video, that he was insane.
Well, the statutes require that if we intend to introduce mental health as a defense, whether in whole or in part, that we file notice. And normally this is something we would do later in the proceedings. As you know, we don't even have a trial date yet. But, our hope is to expedite. The state will get their opportunity to have our client examined. So we want to expedite those proceedings. I mean, you're looking at an 18-month or more backlog to get folks examined at the state facility. So normally we would wait much later, but we went ahead and filed that notice in the hopes to get that moving along.
You said specifically in your filing that you're not saying he's not competent. That's not the question here. And you had said that in an earlier hearing as well. This is specifically, you want him examined. You want your expert to be a part of it when the state does examine him. But you're saying basically, look, there was something going on with Mickey Stines when this happened. And that's why he stood there and just matter-of-factly pulled out his gun and shot Judge Mullins. So do you have any idea, given the fact that you're saying he's not incompetent, do you have any idea about what may have been going on? We know about the deposition in the lawsuit regarding the sex with the inmates in the courthouse. What else have you been able to glean, if anything, that you can share with us?
Well, so in terms of what the specific mechanism or diagnosis is at the time, I'm going to defer questions on that. But I will say this. There was no doubt to anyone that was around Mickey in the days following the deposition, prior to the deposition, and certainly after the deposition and the days leading up to what you saw in the video, that he had not slept, rarely, if any, had not slept in days, that his demeanor was completely off. People described him as paranoid. and just not acting in accordance with his normal demeanor. Now, again, I don't want to get into specifics. The statute requires that there be a mental disease or illness or defect. I'm not going to get into that now. I'll wait until we hear more from the experts. But I'll just say this: there's zero doubt that the combination of his mental health, which was exacerbated by the pressure put on him because of this deposition, played a role in what we saw. And within that mental health defense, you really have two things. One, which I've said from the beginning for the preliminary hearing, we think sets the ceiling for the Commonwealth, is extreme emotional disturbance, right? Because that's a partial defense. And that goes to, at the moment he acted, did his emotions become so enraged, disturbed, or inflamed that he acted almost, basically out of control. I think it's evident that something happened within those chambers, and we'll get into more of that as the case progresses. But there was a moment at which his emotions, in a worst case for our client, it's extreme emotional disturbance, which would get us to manslaughter. But we believe that there's more, and we believe that that we will put on evidence that he was unable to conform his conduct based upon some mental health issues that were going on during that week.
So you touched on this, and I know we've talked about this before as well, that he felt an imminent threat. You said something happened in those chambers. We've obtained video that shows Mickey Stines. We've kind of retraced his steps that whole day, walking away from the courthouse, walking to lunch, walking back in. Judge Mullins is on his bench. We see that. And then whatever happens. I mean, there's no audio, unfortunately. We don't know what was stated. Have you been able to learn what was stated? You said we'll get into that at trial, but do you know what Judge has Mickey Stines told you what Judge Mullins said that made him feel threatened?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to get into what my client has told me. I will tell you that when Mickey entered the judge's chambers, he had there was no doubt in his mind that his wife and his daughter had been threatened. And based upon what transpired in those chambers, he believed that threat was in motion.
And immediate.
And so
I'm assuming, because you had said
yes,
we're an imminent threat.
Yeah, he felt that his wife and daughter had been taken. And, I think that, there's a lot out there that touches on what was actually going on behind the scenes. We look at the Benfield's deposition, the deputy that was convicted of having coercive sex with someone who was on probation and or on an ankle monitor at the time in the judge's chambers. We've got a video. I mean, if we take a step back here, we're talking about a live feed in the judge's office. That's unheard of. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I can speak for Kentucky. I've been in a lot of judges' chambers. I've seen a lot of cameras, but I've never seen one that was a live feed, basically a security camera. My understanding, that camera went up after this prosecution of Benfield's in the civil suit. So we know in those chambers there was things going on that shouldn't have been going on. And we believe that there were folks that didn't want it being told in this deposition what was going on in there before they put cameras up.
All right, let me stop it real fast. You guys, I said it a while ago. It was very odd. Well, it wasn't surprising that Daniel Dotson was representing him in his personal capacity, because he tends to represent everybody that is important and everybody who is charged with really, really big charges. And I found it very interesting that he went with him that day in person for Mickey's deposition. It was the only one that he was listed at. I do not think he was present for any of the other depositions, which I found very interesting because everybody else that was at Mickey's deposition was also at everybody else's deposition, or at least that's what it looked like to me. And a lady friend of mine who is very, very familiar with the court system. She worked in it and retired from it. And she also thought that was kind of odd. And she went and looked to see if he had filed an entry of appearance. And she said that she never could find one anywhere for Daniel Dotson. I don't know if that's, I'm no lawyer, so I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if it's required, especially in a federal lawsuit. It's a civil suit too, so I don't know if if that's different than a criminal suit. But I think that Mickey's lawyer is really getting more, like when he first started giving interviews, he just kind of gave a few hints towards this. But every interview that he's given since the first one, I think he has given just a little bit more and a little bit more about the situation, about what Mickey was going through at that time. If you all listen to what he said Mickey thought his wife and child had been taken already, that he had been threatened. I've heard that he had been threatened, that he got a phone call, and it scared the living bejesus out of him. And so that's why he hadn't been sleeping. He was, pacing back and forth. I said in one of my interviews, or whenever we were doing a show, I think it was Court TV, actually, the first one, I said that he had walked all night, that's what was told. Well, I think they misunderstood what I meant, because I think that they thought I meant he was like walking down the road all night. That's not what I meant. It's kind of like a figure of speech for pacing. He just walked the floor all night long. I don't know if he left the house or not. I don't know, of course. But that's what has been told. So let's finish listening to him.
And I believe that there is a history that would show us that there is a reasonable belief that that he was in danger, his family was in danger, depending on what he said in this deposition. Now, again, we think that was exacerbated by his mental health, or conversely, these threats impacted his mental health. But the bottom line is that Mickey felt that there was a threat to his wife and daughter and that it was imminent.
We know that Sabrina Atkins had told the Attorney General's office in Kentucky sometime before this that she was aware of a videotape of Judge Mullins having sex with somebody.
I've read that, yes, and I heard it.
I mean, we have the audio of her being interviewed by investigators.
Sure.
So have you, through your investigation of this case, been able to uncover any more information about that?
I upgraded my morning caffeine and sugar routine to Paley Valley's organic super greens for 14 days. And here's what.
Yes. But I'm not going to comment on what that is. I'm not here. This is not the time and place. I've been very deliberate in not disparaging the judge. I'm not going to do that at this point. I will say, though, that we're pretty confident that there were matters that could have been revealed in the deposition that people didn't want told.
Sure. And obviously, we don't want to disparage Judge Mullins, but this is a key question in the case, and what Mickey Stines knew and when and what have you. So you filed the notice. He's going to plead insanity. What happens next? I know he has to be evaluated. So what's next? You said there's a backlog of 18 months for him to be evaluated by the state. So where do we go from here?
Yeah. So I'll take a step back. So the notice says that we may rely on that defense. We've given notice that we very well may introduce insanity as a defense, and I think that we very well may. But what you have to understand is in putting on this particular defense, it's going to be vital to know what was going on around Mickey to understand why it was reasonable or unreasonable to believe that his family was threatened. And so, there's a lot more to this than, to say that we're going to rely on the insanity defense, yes. But, along with telling the story of his mental health, there's a lot of surrounding story that's inextricably intertwined with it that we'll have to tell and as part of his defense. But in terms of.
Okay, so let me clear a few things up. We've got some comments here that I can tell people are very confused. Okay. This is Mickey's defense attorney for pew-pewing the judge. Okay. This is Jeremy Bartley. So he is representing Mickey for the judge, pew-pewing the judge. 3 days before he pew-pewed the judge, he sat for a deposition over his deputy, Mickey's deputy, Ben Fields, being convicted of R-ing and R-wording and S-wording Sabrina Adkins. Now, that was the criminal charge against the deputy. He was only he was only convicted on one, which was Sabrina Adkins. He was actually, this civil suit that Ned Pillersdorf has filed is against the deputy, Ben Fields, Mickey Stines as his employer, the sheriff, and the ankle monitor company. Okay, so those are the only 3 people that Ned Pillersdorf has listed and named in that civil lawsuit. Now, Daniel Dotson is a defense attorney, and he's also he's some kind of a commissioner, which is an appointed position. And guess who appointed him? But it's an appointed position where they make decisions over like family court or juvenile stuff. And I think he's been doing that a long time. But Daniel Dotson is the one in Whitesburg who I said he takes all the big cases. Like if there's some serious charges against you, most people are wanting Daniel Dotson. And he's very, very, very expensive. And he's gotten a lot of people out of a lot of trouble. And he also usually represents anybody in that good old boy circle, and remember, it's not just the justice system that's in that good old boy circle. So it's not just lawyers and judges and prosecutors or whatever. It's not just them that are in that good old boy circle. You've got business people, you've got business owners, you've got anybody in like the social services department. They're all combined. They're all in that little good old boy system. And there ain't no women in it. Okay. There ain't no women in it. Not even coworkers are in that good old boy circle. All right. So even if they think they are, and I've seen several of them go in there thinking that they're, one of the boys, until they get through under the bus and their time is over. And they'll get rid of them real quick. At least that's the way it looks to me.
So procedurally, we've given notice, and we believe that if the state, they've not responded saying they want to have him examined in writing. It's my understanding they do. They will, I'm sure. But once they do that and the judge orders him to be evaluated, then at that point, it's up to the state facility and their experts as to when they conduct the testing that they see fit. And as I've said in my filing, I think the statute's pretty clear that our expert gets to participate.
Jeremy Bartley, as always, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming back on.
Angenette, it's always good talking with you. Thanks for having me on. And hopefully we'll talk more as this case goes along.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
I love Jeremy Bartley, buddy. I like his guy. I do. I think he's going to do a really good job with this trial. So thank you, LS. I think Dotson is a domestic relations commissioner for circuit court. That's what LS says. He likes to call himself a judge, I heard. So anyway, he's one of the big circle guys. And I just found it very interesting that he showed up at that deposition. Well, what do you think Mickey thought? Okay, so I have found, I'd heard it a lot, but I didn't really want to say too much about it until I knew if it was, really true or not. But from what I understand, Mickey thought he was being watched. He thought that he was under investigation. And we're just speculating. This is just stuff that I've been told. Obviously, we don't know what was in Mickey's mind at all. But from his behavior, what people have said is that he was just constantly looking over his shoulder. He thought his phone was bugged. He thought that people were following him. He thought that he was really under some kind of big investigation. Even so much so that he wouldn't use his phone much. He was even trying to borrow other people's phones to use their phone so he wouldn't be using his, so that whoever was watching him or listening to him wouldn't be, seeing that call on his phone. So and if you really think about it, like, I can tell you, I'm a little bit scared. Like, the more that this channel has grown and the more information that people share with me, it's kind of overwhelming at times. And it's kind of scary. And I couldn't imagine knowing that this civil suit had been filed. And you got to remember, if the judge was doing all these horrible things that's been reported, if he was doing all these things, Mickey knew it. Now, whether Mickey was doing it or not, that's beside, that doesn't really matter. Even if he wasn't, like, I've heard both. Rumors are just everywhere. But I've heard both. I've heard, don't believe that he was such a nice guy, because where do you think Ben Fields learned to do this? But then I've heard on the exact opposite, that Mickey wouldn't never do something like that. So, I don't know. But we do know that there were a lot of sexual things going on down there at that courthouse. Just like in those depositions, Sabrina said that she had heard rumors that if you couldn't pay for your ankle monitor, you could work something out with Ben. Well, if there were already rumors being spread through the jail that this situation could be bartered, then that means there were more women before her, and several more women before her. Somebody had sent me, and you got to remember how bad these jails are, okay? Like, Letcher County Jail is horrendous. And what did we learn through Mickey's deposition? We learned that Ben Fields, he even admitted to drinking alcohol while he was working at the jail, and he worked at that jail for 10 years. So he was down there at the jail the entire time that Mickey was upstairs in the courtroom as bailiff. So they knew each other, and they knew each other well. I just don't see how any of the people who were in and out of that courthouse every single day did not hear these rumors. That place down there is a gossip mill central. And you got this one sleeping with that one, and you got that one sleeping with this one, and then you got this one over here sleeping with that one. I mean, it's awful from what I understand. It's a cesspool. It's a brothel. I mean, I don't understand how any investigating agency that looks at the whole picture doesn't see this as a human trafficking enterprise. There was so much money being made and profited off of human beings in several different ways. You've got the house arrest, the ankle monitors, which was a financial benefit. I also had somebody look up, and I forgot to go do it myself, but somebody had went to the Attorney General's website. And remember, I had said that they have a section on that website for human and sex trafficking, for identifying it, for being able to recognize it and identify it and know what it is, and just all this. Well, I think on there they had, each county had to list or keep track of their house arrest people. And they said for Letcher County, there wasn't anything. So I got to go look that up myself and see, would that be just for state house arrest? See, I don't even know how that would work. Would there be a difference between a county using a private company like apparently Letcher County did? But because a lot of people thought that it was probation and parole's job to do house arrest. So I don't know. Different states have different laws, have different rules about all that kind of stuff. So I don't really know. But I think that one of the most important pieces to this puzzle, a lot of the national networks haven't picked up on yet. The ARC connection, the rehab facilities, the investigation into Medicaid fraud. I think that they're going to find out that when it comes down to all of the crap that was going on down in Whitesburg, I think it's all going to boil down to money, which I've said from the very beginning. D.E. Wright, Mickey was never on the same page as all of those around him. But you know, too, what it kind of looked like? Mickey's kind of the oddball out, if you notice. He's kind of the oddball out. You know, each group of kids, I've got boys. So I'm a boy mom. And they're ball players. So we have a whole lot of interaction with a lot of other boys, right? We're around, we pick them up and take them to practice. My truck's full of boys going to and from practice all the time. And they'll pick on each other. You know, they will pick on each other sometimes. And sometimes one gets picked on more. It just depends. Well, I just kind of, I wonder if Mickey, because think about it, he's not educated. He's not very educated. Kevin Mullins was very educated. You know, all the other attorneys were very educated. The other people that were involved in a lot of the programs that they worked with every day were all educated. There was just a couple of them, you know, in there, like the deputies. I don't know about Eccles. I don't know how far he went in school. But I think that Field said all he had in his deposition was a high school diploma. I don't think he had anything higher than that. And, you know, it doesn't put you on the same playing field because a lot of these people have really big egos, huge egos. Sunny Days 55. It's like when mob bosses pay for big-time attorneys to defend flunkies to keep them quiet. Well, you know, would Mickey be, would he think that his attorney would keep what, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they're allowed to say anything or if they're not allowed to say anything about the deposition. But would it matter? Would Mickey think that anybody would keep it quiet? It's going to come out. No matter what he says, it's going to come out. And I just wonder, did he have a babysitter that day to try and make sure that he didn't say anything? And you also got to remember that the depositions, that wasn't the end of the filing. That wasn't the end, which I'm not a lawyer, remember, but that wasn't the end of it. You heard what his attorney said. He said sorry, y'all, my dog, 15-year-old, snores like crazy. He said that he was afraid that he was going to say the wrong thing, or that he had already said the wrong thing. I don't know, y'all. D.E. Wright, Mickey was being set up. Well, that's a good possibility. It sure is a good possibility. Mickey was acting like somebody on the run, or about to be, or he also could have looked like he was looking for somebody else. We heard that he went to Dotson's looking for Dotson before he went over to the courthouse. I'd like to be able to, I wish I had that footage, because I'd like to see if we see him go over to his office. His office is right there next to the courthouse, across the street from where they're walking down to the restaurant. So you would be able to see it if he goes over there. So that would be able to be either proven or disproven by that video footage. I'd like to have it myself. Mickey may not have been paranoid. He may have just been observant. It's a good point. It's a really, really good point. Dave says, okay, then I must have gotten some misinformation. Honey, there's a whole lot of that going around. Everything right now is just speculation unless we can see it, ourselves with our own eyes. And you know what else I thought? I thought I recognized Matt Butler in that one room. Was that him in that pink shirt? Was that Matt Butler that was sitting in there in that pink shirt? Terry Scott, I think Mickey participated in the sexual stuff also. Well, I mean, he sure could have. We don't know. That's one way of keeping an eye on someone. Pretend you're there as support. Sure is. My gosh, baby. Jeez. Yes, hit that like button and the subscribe. She's the oldest one I got now. She's 15 years old, and she's really struggling to get around. She's about 120 pounds. Too big for me to carry. If you don't like the way the table is set, flip the table over. Mickey embodied this. Yeah. LS says, I believe there was an investigation into Judge Mullins and his friends. Candy S, if the good old boys has a ladder, then Mullins would be one step up from Mickey. Dotson was there for Mullins, no doubt. I don't know. Of course, we don't know. We're speculating, and it's awful fun. D.E. Wright says, I don't think Mickey was involved. We got a lot of different opinions on this, and there's a whole lot of people that really liked Mickey that were just blindly supporting him, no matter if the video proved he did it or not. They've just all kind of said, nope, we are behind you. If Mickey did this, he had to have had a good reason for it. And, but then you've got a whole bunch of others who think, no, it was wrong, regardless of what the judge did or didn't do. What Mickey did was wrong. I kind of feel like there was a whole lot that had the potential to be exposed. And I think that Mickey was kind of like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a wild card, like they didn't know the people that were involved. And I said it the other night, you got to remember, I don't think a whole lot of this stuff has been going on. Like it might have been going on just as hardcore now as it was 5 or 10 years ago. But these guys are old now, they're not in their prime anymore. I think Dotson's like 72 years old. Now, it has been my experience that Irvert pay men tend to get more Irvert pay as they get older. So, but they just don't work as well. And I won't say no more about that. I'll keep that to myself. Margaret, I would have been paranoid too, naturally. Of course, I'd have been scared to death. I'd have been scared to death. I would have, because we all know the phone is the first thing that'll get you took down. And he had been sitting in that deposition seeing all of this discovery. And I'm sure he saw it before he sat at the deposition. Whenever all that discovery came in, I'm sure he had to sit down and go through all that. What I got was like 12 or 13,000 pages of communications. Like, we didn't go through not even half of them. We didn't even go through it 10% of all the messages back and forth in that case. But Mickey did, or somebody did, I'm sure. So then you start thinking, oh God, well, they ain't found this yet. Well, they're going to find this if they look for it. Oh Lord. So your brain, I'm sure, must start going to all of the things that is getting ready to come out, or at least has the potential to come out. I heard, now I have not confirmed this, okay, but it was very interesting. And the person who gave me this information said that it was true. So they said that, I don't know if it was that day. I think they said it was that day, but that Mickey had went up to one of his deputies and had given him a big bear hug. And when he bear hugged him, he disarmed him and he took his deputy's gun. And that he had sat down with it and took it all apart and said and commented about how filthy it was, how dirty it was. And so he cleaned the weapon, and then he took his out and took his apart and commented about how dirty his was. And he cleaned his and he put them back together. Now, once I confirm that story, I'll tell you the rest of it, but it was very interesting. And it kind of fits. It fits right along with the other information that we've found. DE says Mickey was roadblocked when trying to get info or investigations into shady things several times. He absolutely was. He was the only one that was trying to push forward the cases again, or at least the one case that we know of against Taylor Pratt. Taylor Pratt is the little girl who Edison Banks, our Commonwealth attorney, who passed away in November or the end of October. And remember, he was still alive when Mickey pew-pewed Kevin. So he was still a player in this and right along in that circle, honey. And I've not heard a whole lot of good about that man, alive or in death. And for some reason, when people die, the rest of the community just kind of forgets everything bad about them and wants to put them up on a pedestal and talk about how wonderful and great they were, even if they were the damn devil. So, I don't trust all the he was a great guy thing once they're passed away. But so he got sick. For the last 3 years that he was in office, he was sick and was never at work. I think they said within 3 years he worked like 10 months or something. He was still getting a damn payday. And poor Michael Watts was probably the one doing all of his work. Which I still think Michael Watts should have been appointed Commonwealth attorney. I mean, I think that was a slap in the face, personally. But maybe he didn't want it. He might not have wanted it. But that's just my own personal opinion. But this girl got caught driving Edison Banks's official vehicle, his Commonwealth attorney vehicle with the official tags on the back. She got caught driving that thing loaded down with rugs. And not just once. She got caught more than once and was let go. Not a thing ever happened to her. Well, one of the substances that was listed in the paper and stuff, one of the substances was an unknown substance. They didn't know what it was. She was loaded down with everything. I mean, she had all different kinds of rugs. Well, Mickey had it sent to the lab. It came back. I forget if it was the big F word or the big H word, but it was one of them, and it was really bad. Well, so they end up sending it to a Bell County prosecutor for a special prosecutor to do the case. She wouldn't touch it. She wouldn't open it. She wouldn't file nothing on it. She didn't file her own appearance or anything. She didn't do nothing. And it was reported in the newspaper that Mickey said himself that he had called and called and called trying to get that case moved forward. And it wouldn't budge. Well, who all do you think is involved in that? Where's the justice in that? Where's the fairness in that? So you've got a Commonwealth attorney who's live-in aid, or you might as well say love interest, whether they was together or not. I've heard that he had big old eyeballs for her and that he threw his entire family out of his home, whoever was living there, made them all leave to be able to keep her. There was a whole lot of dirt involved in that? Where's anybody talking about that kind of stuff? All of these things are, whether any of that had anything to do with the pew pew, and I think it's a whole big ball of worms, or can of worms. And any way that you go, they're going to pop out. And, if that's true, if that's the case, if that's the right scenario, the right theory, what do you think Mickey was going to do? Because any way that he goes, he's got to implicate himself. Shelley says, our jailer got an inmate pregnant and resigned and never was charged. Do you think the spouses knew, or if they were also involved in the parties and such? Some of them were. I know of one spouse that was. She's not a spouse no more. But she was a spouse to one of the circle. And the things that have been told about that are absolutely horrendous. Horrendous. I mean, I don't know. Can you traffic your own spouse? I don't think there has really been an investigation into Judge Mullins. Don Tackett says, swingers. Dave says, who's Patty? Patty is the owner of the ankle monitor company, which I found very interesting as well, because in Mickey's deposition, he says they never had a bank account when he was actually the one to do the ankle monitors. He didn't have a bank account to put the money in. So and he never took a check. They didn't. He said in the deposition, I'm trying to think if I ever did take a check. It was a full, all cash business. They didn't take no credit cards. They didn't take no debit cards. This was a cash business. And to me, it sounds very similar to how the Suboxone clinics were allowed to set up when they first started opening. They put all the damn regulations on the clients like we were cattle, and there weren't any regulations on opening a business, a clinic. The only one that I knew of was that they had to have a special certification to prescribe it. But other than that, it was $1 billion industry in Appalachia. Nobody cared about us. Nobody cared about the poor drug addicts in Appalachia, charging $400 a month cash, and then you had to fork out for your counseling too, and it was like $250 way back in the day. And then it didn't matter if you had Medicaid, it didn't matter if you had insurance, they didn't take none of it. None of it. It was all cash. These places had more cash, had lines out the door. Like when we would go, you'd be in the waiting room for 8 hours. When the clinics first opened, they let them take advantage of people so bad. And you had people that depended on that medicine. They had to have their medicine. So it ended up being a burden that was put on their family members. The family members had to come up with this $400 a month cash any way that they could. It didn't matter how. And that exacerbated the street sale even worse, because people had to end up selling some of their medicine to get the money, because a lot of people ended up borrowing the money from somebody. If you'll let me borrow the money just to get to the doctor and get my medicine, I'll give you 10 of them or 20 of them or however many it was. People ended up having to do that because there was no other way for them to get this life-saving and life-altering medication. And it didn't matter how many of us wrote letters. It didn't matter how many of us wrote emails to the legislature, whoever. A lot of the emails I wrote to the drug control policy people in Frankfort and Louisville. They never did respond, but I wrote a whole bunch of them back in the day. These places are just, they take advantage, just like the power company here. My church that I went to church at, the church electric bill, $1,400 a month. And they would not turn the heat on. We had a deacon that would go 30 minutes before church started in the morning, and he would turn the heat on. And they turned it off when we left. And then Sunday evening, if we had a service, they'd come down 30 minutes before the service and turn the heat back on. And then they'd turn it off when we left. And then Wednesday night Bible study, they would turn the heat on and turn it off. The lights aren't on any other time. How in the world can one room, one great big room and a couple of bathrooms, how can they charge $1,400 a month? And that's just a church. That's why a lot of generations live under the same roof. You might have 3, possibly even 4 generations under one roof. It's the only way that they can afford the power bill. Finally, we got somebody to do something. Mitch Whitaker. Bravo, Mitch Whitaker, our state rep. I shared it on my Facebook, but he co-sponsored a bill. Let me see if this is it. Yes. Let me read it. As a co-sponsor of Representative Bobby McCool's HB 616, I am proud to advocate for the elimination of unnecessary fees on power bills. Kentuckians deserve affordable energy prices that are transparent and free from surprise fees. Well, we did a whole lot of research into this problem many years ago. We had protests and we had petitions, and everybody was trying to fight these rate hikes, because the company will go to their little public service commission and say, hey, we need to do a rate increase. And they give it to them, and then they look through it and say, it's up to them whether it is approved or denied. Well, have any of you in Kentucky, have any of you ever seen a public service commission denial of a rate increase? Because I haven't. Not that I can remember. I don't remember them ever denying one. Could be wrong, and I'm just not aware of it. But looks to me like every single request they put in, it gets approved. And we looked at a lot of their financials and stuff back then. And I remember they never took a loss on anything. If it was a decision that one of their, a decision that their company made for their company, and it ended up being a bad decision, and there was a loss, a financial loss associated with that, do you think that they took that loss? Do you think that they absorbed that loss? Mm-mm. They tacked it onto all of our bills. Every single one that I ever saw was tacked onto our bills. And it also looked to me like some kind of a plant that they had purchased in like West Virginia or somewhere like that. We had paid for like 3 times. When you don't have people that are aware of what is supposed to be going on, then they can just get anything they want to over on us because we don't know any better. And a lot of these things are just, they've got a whole big bunch of words, and it's just a big word salad that nobody can decipher. But then you go look at who donated money to certain campaigns. And then you start seeing things make sense. It's really kind of frustrating. Look here. I'm sorry I didn't mention a little bit earlier. Just Reporting gifted 20 Hillbilly Crime memberships. So if you got a membership gifted, please tell them thank you. Thank you, Just Reporting. Helena M, $5. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. Money paying politicians' campaigns per articles. Mickey was leaving and was almost out. Well, he knew that camera was in there. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to get away with that. You know, but a lot of that video footage that we saw, that's new. Some of that is, that was new. Like the hallway video and stuff, that hadn't been released yet. Court TV also got some that we saw tonight, so we'll look at it tomorrow. But it's a lot of the same that Crime Fix had. I have a feeling that they will offer him a plea, so he will keep his mouth shut. If this don't go to trial, we'll never know. It won't come out. I don't think. But could be wrong. D. Webb. Mickey definitely shaking in his boots that they'll have him red rummed while in jail. Wouldn't that be some SHIT? How wake up one day and them say, breaking news. I'd fall out. May have been disgusted how women were treated and men getting consequences, pitiful as they were. Maybe he wanted better for his daughter. Mickey was friends with Ben. Mickey was friends with Ben. These people were friends. I don't think that any of them had any kind of moral attack of conscience all of a sudden. I think it was more of feelings of betrayal, fear. I think he was afraid. And, that we did find out a new piece tonight, guys. He said that Mickey thought his wife and daughter had already been taken. So was he threatened before? Was that the threat that he got on the phone? on his phone call that will make your wife and daughter disappear. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? He might not have been threatened with his own life. He might have been threatened with theirs. I don't know. Beagle Mom says the rehab centers are a racket. You get people in the halfway houses to find people to go into rehab, or off the streets to go into rehab, and they pay a finder's fee. I just learned about it. Well, I wondered if there was a certain amount being paid per head somewhere. Which we still don't know. We don't know about all that part of it, but I think it's all connected. I think money is at the very base of it. I think that you've got a part of it that's sexual, benefit. You got a part that's rug benefit. There's been a lot of evidence go missing from that evidence room. Probably a bunch of stuff never even made it into the evidence room. There's a whole lot of talk out there about certain police officers and their habits. There's a lot of talk out there of people saying this is what I got caught with and this is what I got charged for. Christy says, but a lot of people were manipulating all these others, and crap rolls downhill. If you are in power over another, even if you have education, you can feel backed into a corner to do as they do. Absolutely, you go along to get along. Because why? You want to be accepted. They're the cool kids. Who don't want to be in the cool kids group? I do. I did. I wanted to be in so bad. And, think about, in my mind, I'm imagining, the Mean Girls. Y'all remember the movie, The Mean Girls? Well, they were even unaliving each other. They were mean to each other. I think that happens because think about how childish and immature all of the communications that we saw were. Nobody was following policies. Doesn't even look like many knew what the policies even were, let alone follow them. They kind of made their own rules up as they went. And they decide which rules they follow, and they decide which rules they can just throw out the window. That's what it looks like to me anyway. Lisa, wasn't Mickey Stines being investigated, or was it just his deputy? Well, they were both named in the civil suit. Doesn't seem like there was much of an investigation into the criminal stuff. And I've always heard there ain't no coincidences when it comes to red rum. There's no coincidences. Or death, or, stuff like that. Well, is that just a coincidence that Jennifer Hill OD'd? Is it just a coincidence that that boy that came out on TikTok OD'd and told about his ex-girlfriend and all that money she was getting from the judge? Because her baby was supposed to be his. That's what he got on TikTok and told. Well, he OD'd. No longer here. Then you've got 3 women in Cowan whose red rums are still unsolved. And I'm not saying that all these are connected, but they are all in Letcher County. And it just makes you wonder what all kinds of stuff is being pushed under the rug. Who knows about what? Who knows the truth about what? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. LS. That trooper laughing as he's talking to dispatch tells you a whole lot. It shocked me big time. Shocked me. There are just, Jerry, they're all just a bunch of orny hay old men. They're everywhere, too. Everywhere. And trust me, as a woman, you know, you can tell, you know pretty much how they look at you. You sure know how they talk to you. Several people have told me they'd go into that courthouse and they'd be alone in a room and they'd say, look up at them, fill out their paperwork at their desk and look up at them. Show me your boobs. Show me your boobs. Oh, I believe it. I believe every word of it. Because it reminded me of the one that asked me the very same thing. Now, he wasn't one of them that we're talking about, but he worked at the jail before he knew who I was. And so if you're willing to say that to somebody that you really don't know very well, and honey, I was in church all the time in church. There wasn't no chance I was going to do that. But he didn't know that. I guess he thought it was worth a try. You know, and how, I don't know how anybody else responds to these kinds of dirty old men, but I always kind of laugh. I get nervous. I get uncomfortable. And I try and laugh it off because I'm always afraid. Well, I'm not really afraid, but I'm not much of a confrontational person, you know. When a fella at my church touched me inappropriately in a prayer session, I didn't know how to respond. And, you know, it can be kind of traumatizing sometimes, depending on the situation. But I don't want to, everybody said, well, you should have slapped him silly. In church, I'm not going to slap nobody, you know, even for something like that. I'm not going to do that. And I just kind of froze. I didn't know what to do. And afterwards, I told my pastor about it. I waited until everybody left and I told my pastor about it because it really messed with my head. I couldn't believe it. And he said, well, just from now on, just hold back and wait and see which side he goes to, and then just go to the other side. You know, and that's pretty much how we dealt with that. But it's not comfortable. It puts you in a really, really kind of, well, what it reminded me of was Sabrina in her deposition. Like when that cop was interviewing her, you could tell her hesitant. Like, you know, she's the only hero in this whole story, y'all. Sabrina. And Jennifer Hill. and any other woman who came forward and told her story about it. Because I couldn't imagine how scared they were. I can't imagine how scared Sabrina was to go back to jail at the Letcher County Jail. She was probably terrified. She was probably scared that they would harm her. I mean, who wouldn't? Yeah, June Johnson. We saw that. She said some of the video that was released besides the shots of them going to lunch, but they only showed just small portions of that video. I don't know how long the video actually was that they got. I need to do better on public records requests for myself. I'm afraid they won't give them to me. I tried a while back to get some, and I was told to have my attorney contact them. And I was like, what? I don't need no attorney to get public records. You know that. And he was like, oh. So I just figured that I'm not going to get nothing. So I ain't even tried. Plus, I'm doing everything myself. So it's kind of hard to do it all. Mickey may have been afraid that the higher-ups thought that he had flipped on them since he was deposed. Maybe his lawyer was there to keep him quiet about certain things. Exactly. That's what I wonder, too. Was it an intimidation to him? I truly think that Steins didn't know, not to the extent that they were doing it. I think he may know of some things, but his hands were tied, so to speak. I completely agree with that. I don't know if he knew the extent of it. I don't know. You know, some people don't want to know things, so I don't know. Eric says, but he couldn't say anything because they were threatening his family. And if they were threatening his family, that threat is still there. Taking out Mullins didn't do nothing. That threat is still there. Because there's more in that circle of iniquity. I mean, I wouldn't say anything. Who in the heck would ever believe him? Hence why he finally came to the point. I thought there was a part 2 to that, but I don't see it. I don't know. Jess, when I'm gone, y'all better say she was a beach bud. Dang, she was funny. We love you, Jess. Yeah, I know. We got to get to bed. It's a school night for us, too. All right, guys. Well, tomorrow we got some more stuff to do, so watch for us in the morning. And we've got a ball game. We've got our first baseball game. Oh, thank you. We've got our first baseball game tomorrow against LCC in Whitesburg. So, fun. You know who all will be there, don't you? The who's who of Whitesburg. This ought to be interesting. Anyway. All right, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you all for coming. And we'll see you tomorrow, okay? Stay warm. Stay blessed. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You can't hide from hillbilly crime.
You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dark pass away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't mask the cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise.